Have you ever squashed a bug and then felt a flicker of guilt? You know the feeling. You see the tiny thing struggling for a second, twitching its legs, and then nothing. And maybe, just maybe, in the back of your mind you wonder, did it feel that? Did I just cause pain to something that's capable of suffering? And not just reacting, but actually feeling pain. Like a dog does, or a human, or anything with a brain and nerves. This question might sound simple, but it takes us straight into one of the weirdest, murkiest, and most fascinating areas of science. What is pain, and who gets to feel it? To really understand whether insects feel pain like humans, we first have to dig into what pain actually is. And here's the surprising part. Pain isn't just a sensation. It's not just what happens when you stub your toe or burn your hand on the stove. It's a complex, deeply subjective experience. It starts with something called nociception, which is the detection of harmful stimuli, like high heat, intense pressure, or damaging chemicals. That's the biological part. But what comes after, that's pain. Pain is what your brain makes of those signals. It's awareness, it's emotion, it's the ouch, it's the memory of it. It's the way your body reacts not just physically, but psychologically. And in humans, pain is tied to consciousness, to the ability to suffer, to fear, and to anticipate. So, when we ask if insects feel pain, we're not just asking whether they respond to damage. We're asking if they suffer in a way we can relate to. If there's an inner experience behind those twitching legs or fleeing wings, and that's where it gets complicated. Now let's talk about insect brains. They're tiny, sure. A fruit fly has about 100,000 neurons. Compare that to a human's 86 billion, and it seems almost laughable. But insect brains are efficient. They're capable of performing complex behaviors, navigating, solving simple problems, remembering, and even communicating. Bees can remember locations and even perform a little dance to tell their friends where to find food. Ants form rescue parties to retrieve injured comrades. Wasps can recognize faces. So we're not talking about wind-up toys here. Insects are doing things that suggest a kind of internal world, or at least some pretty sophisticated software running inside their tiny heads. And here's something even more interesting. Insects do have nociceptors. That means they can detect harmful stimuli. They know when something's wrong, and they react. If you touch a cockroach with something hot, it'll run. If a fruit fly is exposed to extreme heat, it will learn to avoid it in the future. Some experiments have shown that injured insects will favor their uninjured limbs, adjusting how they walk or move in ways that minimize further damage. That's behavior that looks a lot like pain avoidance. But here's the thing. Reacting to harm isn't the same as feeling pain. Your toaster can react to heat. Your phone can vibrate when it overheats. That doesn't mean they're suffering. So how do we tell the difference between mechanical reaction and conscious experience? Scientists have tried to answer that by looking at whether insects can form negative associations with harmful experiences. And they can. In experiments, flies learn to avoid areas where they were shocked or exposed to heat. This kind of learning goes beyond simple reflexes. It suggests memory, preference, and some form of internal processing. And some researchers go even further, arguing that insects might experience a kind of chronic pain. In one study, injured fruit flies displayed long-lasting changes in behavior, like being hypersensitive to touch, even after the injury had healed. That sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it? But still, other scientists are skeptical. They point out that insects don't have the same kind of brain structures that mammals use to process pain. For example, humans and many vertebrates have opioid systems that modulate pain, releasing chemicals like endorphins to dull the suffering. Insects don't appear to have those systems, or at least not in the same way. They don't vocalize in distress. They don't show long-term emotional changes like depression or anxiety. And perhaps most importantly, we just don't know if they have the capacity for consciousness. If pain requires consciousness, if suffering requires a self, then maybe insects aren't suffering at all. Maybe they're just reacting like highly complex biological machines. But here's the problem. Consciousness is a black box. We barely understand it in ourselves. We can't prove it in animals. We don't even fully understand which parts of the brain give rise to it. So, when it comes to insects, we're in the dark. They might be conscious in a way that's radically different from ours, alien, foreign, but still real. Or they might be completely unconscious, just code running on flesh. And that uncertainty is where the ethics come in. Because if there's even a small chance that insects can suffer, even if it's not the way we suffer, doesn't that change things? Right now, we kill trillions of insects every year, whether through pesticides, research experiments, food production, or just everyday life. We don't think twice. But if there's a tiny flicker of experience in that little fly's brain, if there's any chance of suffering, shouldn't that at least make us pause? Some researchers are starting to argue for insect welfare, especially in industries like farming, where insects are raised and killed by the billions. Others say that's ridiculous, that we can't afford to care about creatures with such minimal nervous systems. But think about it. We used to think fish didn't feel pain. We used to think octopuses were just instinct-driven blobs. And now we know they're smart, curious, and likely very capable of suffering. So maybe history will prove us wrong about insects too. In the end, the question, do insects feel pain like humans, might not have a clear answer. They probably don't feel it like we do, but that doesn't mean they don't feel anything. And when it comes to suffering, maybe is a powerful word. Maybe means there's room for empathy, for caution, and for a little humility about what we think we know. So next time you're about to swat that fly, just remember, you might not be squashing a robot. You might be touching a creature with a mind, however small. A mind that doesn't scream, but might still whisper. And that's something worth thinking about.